.755 is real with David O'Brien and Eric O'Flaherty.
Welcome back to 755 is real and a very important St. Patrick's Day spectacular with me, David O'Brien, your Braves writer with The Athletic, and my co-host Eric O'Flaherty out
What's up,
in
Dave?
not in Seattle. Where are you, Eric?
I'm out in Walla Walla, my hometown.
Your hometown.
Yeah.
It's my hometown. You're moving back there, right?
Yeah.
Fill the folks in.
We just got, we had a great setup in Seattle, but it just rained so much, and we were doing homeschool with the kids, and I'd look at it, and my 6-year-old would still be inside. He hadn't even gone outside for the day. It's like 2 p.m. So we just decided to get a different pace of life and have more time on our hands. We got another boy on the way, so we got grandma out here to help. It's going to be good. It's a good move for our family. I think it's going to be hard for my wife, but I'm loving it, man. I've gotten so much done in such a short amount of time here versus everything in the city just takes forever. Yeah.
And even though you're in the same state, you're in a whole different climate, right? Because you're on the other side of the
state. It's like 4 hours from Seattle. It's been sunny every day we've been here.
Uh-huh.
A little colder, but it's not wet.
Cost of living is probably a little lower, right? A little bit than Seattle.
Oh man. Yeah. It's like my property taxes alone are going to go down like 15 grand. It's a different life for sure.
Well, you can still get streamed games there, so you'll see.
Got internet.
All the baseball.
Yeah.
What a spring, man! What a weird spring so far. But hey, by the way, happy St. Patty's Day, man! I got my Larry Bird shooting shirt on, so we're good, man.
I saw that.
Who's going for second? Let's start with a couple of notes. First of all, the biggest news in years in baseball: the bases are going to be a couple inches bigger in the minor leagues. What is that all about? Did you just go, what? That was how I thought at first it was a joke. I thought the bases are going to be bigger with all that's going on in baseball, and you thought that would be a solution to a problem that doesn't exist?
I'm hoping it's not because they hired Theo to
I know.
to get in. I hope this isn't coming from him. All the tinkering, man. I don't know that you can really compete with social media and video games and all the stuff kids are into. And these little changes, I just don't see how any of it's really going to make a difference. I know baseball's trying to figure out what they can do, but I don't think the answers are in moving the mound around or, anything gimmicky. I think it's the way the game's marketed.
But I didn't understand why they think doing that a couple inches on each base?
Who cares?
Do they think that there's enough bang bang plays that's going to make a difference? Because people just adjust,
Yeah.
It's not going to make the difference where every bang bang play all of a sudden is a stolen base. That's not going to happen. Now, if you reduce the distance between the bases by a foot, maybe that would make a difference. But that's not what they did. Then you'd have to change the whole fields. So they went the cheap route just by making the bases bigger.
Make them bigger. See if that works. It just seems like they're just throwing crap at the wall and kind of seeing what'll stick.
The only positive I saw from that when I saw it, and it's probably not, I don't think it's even the intended thing, but I thought about Tim Hudson when he got his ankle blown up, when he was reaching back with his foot, when he was covering first base on that throw, and he missed the base, and he was reaching back with his foot to get the base, and he ended up putting his foot too far under the base, and who stepped on it? I forgot. One of the Mets.
Ben Revere, was it? I'm not 100% on that. It was,
but he
crushed. I thought it was a Phillies dude, but he just destroyed Huddy's ankle.
It was in New York.
It was the Mets.
It was in New York. I was there, and it just shattered his ankle. So I could see maybe you avoid one or two incidents like that with a bigger base, but it seems like
the softball base on back behind first base in foul territory. It's just, I don't know. I don't see any of it making any noticeable difference.
We've spent enough time discussing that. Yeah. What were the other minor league changes they were talking about that stood out, that were dumb, or were any of them making sense?
They had to have at this point, man, these things come up and I don't even read them. I feel like, because they're just so.
I'm numb to it.
numb to it. Yeah. They were doing something with infielders have to be on the infield dirt.
Right. That's the shift rule.
Yeah. Which I think could change stuff, but it's hard for me to gauge how hard it is to hit MLB pitching, because I came up with guys and playing against guys, and the most frustrating hitters for me were like Chone Figgins and Reggie Willits, guys that would slap the ball and take their singles.
Yep.
But those guys don't, they don't get jobs now. It's one, players don't feel like they get paid for hitting like that. And then two, guys that can really have back control, like a Martin Prado or somebody like that. If you try to shift on them, they'll beat it, but they're not getting opportunities. The way that the teams are built is different. I think they're trying to force teams to build their teams differently, but they can't do it because the teams are winning with these approaches.
Yeah. In the launch angle era, you're not getting guys who do everything, who can beat the shift by slapping one down, who at the same time, they're thinking about launch angle and crushing balls. Freddie Freeman is an exception, and they still shift the hell out of Freddie. They still shift him. Because I guess they figure it's almost a win to get Freddie to take a single the other way. But there aren't many guys like Freddie that can do that, and that they're going to keep shifting on if he shows he can do that. You know what I mean? With Freddie, it's still worth it for them to shift because he gets a lot more balls, line drive hits taken away than hits he gets. Than hits he gets hitting through the shift. Because he didn't get more than a handful of those a year. To me, that's
when he hits a ground ball with his swing, it's when he turns it over, so it's that top spin ground ball that sneaks through the infield, or those top spin line drives that get right over the second baseman's head. Now he's playing 10 feet deeper and they catch him. But I don't, as a pitcher, singles are the most frustrating because that's what starts the whole inning. That's what gets, you got to deal with the runner on first now. You got to deal with the pressure of a runner on. And if you had a lineup full of guys that are willing to do that, I think could be pretty effective. But most of them are built where there's just, you're batting Acuna leadoff.
Yeah.
So you're dealing with a dude that can go deep right from the start of the game. So it's just a different game now. But yeah, I just don't see, I don't have the answers to how to combat it and change it, but it's making the bases bigger is not doing anything.
It's not the answer. I'm torn. I wish I could say that I have a strong stance like I do with steroids on shifts, but I don't because I see both sides of it. It frustrates the hell out of me when I see these ridiculous shifts, and so many guys get line drive hits that should be rewarded with hits for hitting the ball that hard. Right to somebody. It's almost impossible to get it through the shift. Some of them are so stacked. But at the same time, I'm like, I can see the other side, which is you don't like it, hit the ball over there where they're not, so I can see both sides of it. But when a guy like Dusty Baker, who I love, comes out and says, if you can really hit, you can beat the shift by hitting it through the left side. I can see his side of that, but then somebody counters with, but Dusty Baker wasn't hitting 103 and 95 mile an hour sinkers, DeGrom, so I can see that side of it too, because there's something to that. There is different pitching today than there was then.
Yeah.
And it's hard to hit a ball through the left side. And everybody's not Freddie Freeman or Brian McCann could also do it.
But that's what I can't speak to, and I wish I could, because I watch the games and I think the same thing. I think just go the other way. And, I think until you've stood in a batter's box against a dude throwing 99, which seems like every team has 8 of them now.
Yeah.
I just can't speak to it and say, why don't you just be like Martin Prado and flare it the other way? Or why don't you just take your single? And I would talk to hitters, because even while I was still playing, it would come up a lot. And I would talk to them about it. And the mindset, and I thought it was flawed, but again, I've never been in the box. The mindset was, I'm not going to hit any home runs flipping the ball the other way, and I got to put up my numbers. So it almost comes off sometimes as like a selfish approach. But that's just the way hitters are looking at it, and that's what they're getting paid to do.
Right. It's right. And people, if you want to call them, you can't call them selfish when that's what they're getting paid for. That's the way the game's economy is geared towards, that's why it fosters, the launch angle and all that. So
if you're a first baseman hitting 10 homers a year, you're not getting called up.
Right.
Even if you play great defense and you can help a team win, like say Casey Kochman type of guy who just had great at bats, took his singles, quality player. teams want home runs out of those positions. So guys are like, those are the numbers I got to put up, and they chase them. And that's why they wind up just continuing when they miss to hit right into the shift, and it looks bad.
And even a guy like Markakis isn't appreciated as much today when he hits, 15 home runs from a corner outfield spot. They want 30, from a corner outfield spot today. But yeah, when they're throwing 98 in on the hands or sinkers, I mean, it's like you got to be thinking about hitting the ball through the left side, poking it through on the to beat the shift. That's tough, man. It's not little league, Yeah, we could do it in Little League. Stick the bat out there and just kind of hit it the other way.
Yeah.
Or like Kelly Leak, reach out and hit an extra base hit on a pitch out.
Yeah. I mean, I think the number one thing that's gone wrong was, one, they moved the fences in. And because almost every stadium, like Citi Field, Safeco, San Diego, you had all these parks
Detroit.
Yeah, Detroit, all these hitters' parks where, the outfielders were playing deeper, so singles had a better chance of falling in.
Yeah,
they brought
like
the fences in. Yeah, like Colorado would be a zoo every game, and that's what killed you at Colorado. Wasn't necessarily how the ball flew; it was how big the outfield was, and all the bloop singles, and then the home run.
Yeah.
But they did that, and then they juiced the balls, so they made it such a reward to chase the home run, and they made it so guys that are, would be 5 to 10 homer guys can now hit 18, and they can hit opposite field home runs, and I think that. You almost have to move the fences back and make the field bigger to start enticing guys to chase singles some more.
Yeah, and that's where baseball erred, I think, because they never had minimum distances for fields and stuff, because back in the day they were building parks to fit in city blocks and that kind of thing. So you had like polo grounds where you'd have
200 down the line and
500 to center. So they had to make it fit. So you couldn't really limit or make minimal restrictions for ballparks, but you could nowadays, because no ballparks are built, like Fenway Park in a city block, that kind of thing. So, but that's one of those things that would take forever, because you couldn't make fields retrofit, the stadiums that are there. Right. So, but most of those places, it looks bad because they brought the fences in and there's just space. They put bullpens in there, or there's just space. They put Monument Garden at Yankee Stadium, inside between the fence where it was. And, it's just, there's like, you named 5 of them. There's like 5 fields that they had a great idea when they built the park. And then they said, no, people want more offense, our free agents want to go somewhere where they can hit home runs. So they caved to the pressure and bring the fences in 40 feet, Citi Field was
Citi Field,
huge.
I mean, when they built that park, David Wright couldn't get it out to left center. I mean, he was like the main guy that was pushing for the fences to be moved in and saying it's too far. He'd get a ball to left center and it hit the wall. And now you got lefties going opposite field over that.
It was huge. That was a huge park. And San Diego, all their guys complained. Remember? Brian Giles, those guys, they couldn't hit bombs because it was huge park when they first built it. All these parks were like Marlins Park was and Marlins Park finally caved last year. And brought them in. Those were great places to go because it was different there. It was like you had more pitching duels and not so many home run fests. But it was funny because when the Padres were all complaining about their park in the first few years, remember what happened when the Braves played there? Yeah. Andrew and Chipper. Andrew had more home runs at Petco Park in like the first 4 or 5 years than any hitter from the National League West. And the Braves only played one series there a year. It was crazy, man. It was crazy how the Braves hit there. Andrew,
Turner Field was big, especially the right center.
Yep. Chipper and Freddie lost a lot his first year there, but Chipper lost a lot of home runs in right center at Turner Field, a lot.
So did BMAC. If BMAC would have played his whole career for the Yankees, he probably had another 100 homers.
It pisses me off when people start talking about the joke fields and they start naming places like Colorado, which is really not a joke at all. It's just altitude and like you said, all those balls that fall in front of
all the singles
in front of outfielders is what are the gaps.
Yeah,
triples. You got so many triples there. I mean, look at all the triples there. But nobody ever mentions, or rarely, Yankee Stadium. Right field at Yankee Stadium is an absolute joke. It's like Cincinnati.
The new one, when you're shagging in right field as a pitcher, you feel like you're too close to the action. Like you can't get far enough away to shag. Everything's gone and everything's over your head.
Like left field at Houston with that Crawford box seats.
Yeah.
which they have like 320 on the wall, and it's actually like 310.
304.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're a joke too. But at least the wall's 20 feet up or whatever it is.
Yeah, it's high. But even then, it's like all the doubles off it and line drives that would have been caught, kind of like Fenway.
But Yankee Stadium, the wall's not even high in right field.
Mm-mm.
It's a joke, some of the home runs that are hit there.
Yeah.
Opposite field, just fly balls. Oh, home run.
Yeah, but then you think about that, when I think it was at Yankee Stadium. It was in Philly. Philly's a good one too in right field to sneak some out. But some of those balls Acuna hit last year and looked frustrated, or 2 years ago, and then they snuck out like 15 rows. Yeah. I mean, they didn't even scrape the wall. He thought he popped up.
Just kept carrying.
If you can run into a homer on accident that easy to opposite field, why are you going to try to beat the shift?
Yeah, no doubt. It's going to be interesting to see the effect the balls have when we know they're using all the new balls in the regular season. I don't know if they're using them all in spring training.
They look normal. They look like the juice ones right now.
Yeah,
some of the balls.
It's tough to tell in spring training because the way the ball carries in Arizona, it's tough to tell. I mean, look at the PCL numbers out in the West. But it's going to be interesting. Somebody asked me because I predicted that Acuna, if he stays healthy, I predict he's going to get 40-40 this year. And I think he'll push 45-45. He's in terrific shape. He's slimmed down. He looks great. And somebody said, well, what about the new balls? I'm like, try to name 3 home runs Acuna's hit that did not go 15 rows up. He never hits fence scrapers. He doesn't hit fence scrapers.
No.
He's like Ozuna. They hit bombs.
If they get it, it doesn't matter what ball they're hitting.
The guy that would have lost a lot of home runs was the catcher when they had a couple of years ago. I can't even think right now. Went to the Nationals.
The Braves had him?
Yeah. Hawaiian dude. Why can't I even think?
Oh, Suzuki. Yeah, Suzuki could hit some wall scrapers.
He hit so many wall scrapers. To left field, I'm thinking all these ones he hit inside the foul pole. That guy, he'd lose some home runs. He would have lost 5 that year probably. But I can't think of any Acuna home runs that would have been affected by 2 or 3 feet, which is what they say this new ball will be.
I mean, you just got to wait and see what it does. I kind of hope that I'd like to see a different game too. I mean, it's fun to watch a game with action on the bases and all that. But you just got to wait and see because they've just been tinkering with the ball for years, it seems like. And I don't even know if they know what's going to happen until it goes on the field.
And that's what happens. They never should have started tinkering with the ball. Never change it. Just go with what it is. Instead, they go too far with it, then they cut it back, and they'll probably go too far this way.
Well, even if Acuna gets 45 this year, and then you say the bases are bigger. I mean,
no, the major league bases aren't bigger.
Oh, good.
It's only the minor league bases.
Okay.
I know you're going to have an asterisk by the stolen base, but the thing is, you're not going to set any stolen base records. Those are never going to be broken.
No, Ricky's got that locked down.
Never. I mean, him and Vince and Rock Reigns, those guys, they were stealing over 100 sometimes. Him and Vince, 100.
100. I think he had 140 one year.
Somebody asked me, I said, that's the record that'll never be broken, more than any of the others, except for, the steroid records that Barry had.
Cal Ripken's going to be tough to beat.
Right. But I'm talking about like performance, instead of longevity.
Oh, no, you're not beating.
You're not beating them because the game's changed with the slide steps and guys aren't using the big leg kick. Back then they were putting leg kick on when runners were on base.
Ricky's steal 2 bases before he even threw it to the plate.
Different game. Yeah, different game. They're so much quicker to the plate. There's analytics and catchers, pop times, everything. But the slide step basically just changed everything, didn't it? I mean, till the early 90s that came along. You don't see this stuff. You'll see a guy steal 70 now and then. Now in the 60, but it's rare, and they have to be the fastest guy in the sport and run it every chance. I'm
trying to think what D. Gordon's one guy I thought.
He was the guy that had like a couple 60s, 70s, didn't he?
I'll look it up.
He did.
He's the last real burner and threat on the bases I remember, being a problem.
Him and the guy the Braves had from Billy Hamilton.
Billy Hamilton, that's right. Yeah,
well,
D. Gordon got 60 and 64 a few years.
But you're talking about guys with world-class speed, You know what I'm talking about? So there's very few of those left. There's not really a place in the game for Billy Hamilton right now, the way it's played. But if he could get on base, if he could hit 280 and get on base 350, then okay. But he wasn't hitting. So Acuna gets on base, leading off, and runs, and they're not putting the red light up for him. They're not putting a stop sign up for him.
I'd like to see it. I'd like to see what he can do in a full season.
How much do you think it affects him if Freddie is batting third instead of second? So they're not taking it should run more, right? They're not taking the bat out of Freddie's hands.
Right. No, it gives him an at bat to try to get it versus with Freddie up and you get thrown out or he can't swing at his pitch because Freddie gets pitched pretty careful. Mm-hmm. So he might get his pitch in that at bat, There's a lot of times where you would get told that, or not me, but hitters would get told, the runners would get told, don't take the bat out of his hands.
Yeah.
And you could sense it as a pitcher. You'd look at the guy on first base. Like I had Andrew McCutcheon on first against me one time in extra innings, and his lead was just a little baby lead. And I'm thinking, I was worried about him the first two pitches, and then I realized, he's shutting it down and letting this guy hit, and I could just mentally kind of forget about him and focus on the hitter. But yeah, with Freddie hitting third and not right after Acuna, I mean, it gives him a full at bat, depending who's there. If it's Dansby, I like it because you can hit and run with him too, like a bat control guy.
I do too. That's what I like there for that purpose.
I like it for hit and runs with Dansby, and Dansby's not a guy that he's not Deadpool or anything. I mean, he can spray the ball a little bit, so that gives him a whole at bat to try to get the bag.
Yeah, I love Dansby there, especially the way he's hit last year and this year in spring. He looks like this too. He's got a great approach and go the other way. He knows when he needs to take a pitch or if he knows he's running, he's going to make he's going to make contact, or foul it back or whatever. He's a cerebral hitter, and I don't want Ozzie up there worrying about Acuna so much. I like Ozzie where Duvall was as another big bat down a little further,
taking a chance to do some damage. Yeah.
So I like Ozzie in there at like 6 or 7, man. I mean, I like him there with Darno like at 5th, behind Ozuna. I like Ozzie down there further where he's not even worried about, anything except just going up there and raking. So.
Yeah, and it's nice to have a guy like Ozzie, kind of toward the bottom of the lineup with speed too. Kind of get things going back again if you get through that hard part of the lineup. Almost, like a leadoff guy for the bottom of the order.
And I loved the idea always of Dansby as a 2-hole hitter. It's just that he had a couple seasons where he wasn't hit enough to justify that. Yeah. But now that he is, he really fits the profile in a lot of ways of classic 2-hole.
Mentally, he's a good guy to have there too.
That's with that changes next year when the DH comes back, because I love it with Freddie hitting second with the DH. I love that.
Yeah. Well, then you can hit Ozzie ninth, and then you basically got 2 leadoff guys for Freddie.
And they will go back to Freddie second immediately. If they don't go back this year, they could this year, but I don't think they will, as long as it's not just a disaster with whoever's hitting 2. So that's going to be interesting. Most of the Braves people are, looking at the line. If anybody's looking at the offense and actually worried, one, they haven't watched enough spring training, but 2, they should know Snit really hasn't played most of the lineup regulars until this past week. He hadn't played most of the guys more than once back to back. Now he's starting to get guys in for like 3 in a row because he knows it really helps him get in a rhythm, get some at bats, instead of getting 2 at bats and going 2 days and getting enough. So, and you can see it immediately results when Acuna, who started off slow, he got 3 straight games. All of a sudden he looks like Acuna. He homered in 3 out of 4 games after starting off 1 for 14. Ozuna, he was scuffling even more than that. And he hit a bomb yesterday, 3-run bomb. He skipped like 3/4 of the way down to first baseline. It was spectacular. It was like, that's Ozuna. So the regulars, the only one, Freddie hadn't really getting going yet, but he's, he started late and he hasn't got many at bats at all. And if Freddie doesn't get 1 hit in spring training, are you going to be the least bit worried about him? No, not at all. He's healthy and he's fit. That's all that matters. He looks great, fitness wise, and he's healthy. So, the babies thing, maybe that might have been the best thing that could happen to him in the offseason because he's going to rest more and get all the body parts rested.
Hope he's got a good nanny. I mean,
oh man,
that's a lot of action he's got going on in the house right now.
Well, they do. They have the aunt
I'm sure
who's a nanny.
Yeah,
they might have another one in Atlanta for all I know. I'm sure they're well covered in that regard.
Yeah, no, he can afford it for sure. Afford a little help.
Oh man. So yeah, when these guys start hitting more, playing more games, they're hitting. But they had a lot of guys this year. It's a little different. there's no B games because of the pandemic. They axed the B games, which is where a lot of guys got a lot of action, in B games. People didn't see those, but there was a lot going on in those games. So all of a sudden you take out B games where you're playing another opponent on a backfield because of the pandemic. You're playing the same 5 teams again and again and again. We're playing the Twins and the Red Sox. It seems like every day.
Yeah.
But so what? And Snit has a lot of guys fighting for those last couple of bench jobs, and a lot of guys fighting for the last couple of bullpen spots and the last rotation spot. As a result, all of those guys have been playing in the A games for the first couple of weeks.
Yeah.
And you had some games where you only had like 2 lineup regulars in them. So you haven't got many at bats at all for the regulars, and now you're starting to see a lot more of those. And you sent 24 guys to minor league camp, which it's not even open yet. So it's really just separating them, but they're technically not in big league camp. They're still playing in the games though, but you sent them down to kind of start focusing on the guys that are going to be on the opening day roster. So things have changed in the last few days, and you're getting to see a little more representative sample of the players. But yeah, there's no B games, and that's changed everything. And not been, and you haven't seen Drew Smiley's pitched in 2 spring training games. And so has Fried, for that matter. So all the rest of the work's been in sim games, live BP. So it's a little different than what you're used to, what I'm used to seeing.
It's hard too because those B games aren't the same. Those sim games, all that stuff's not the same. You want to be out there, but without the B games, you got to get a look at these guys that are on the bubble.
Yeah.
Fried's on the team, Smiley's on the team, so you have them go pitch wherever you can. You try to get their work in, but you do, as a player, you do want to be in the big games and pitching with fans. And if they got a night game, you want to be out there under the lights and doing all that. But it definitely complicates things, running it. And then also when you're worried about guys' spring training stats, you have to remember that teams are also throwing guys that aren't in the zone.
Right.
You can face, a lot of times a guy like Freddie would go down to the minors and maybe even struggle because pitchers aren't around the zone as much. It's more sporadic and they can't take their approach down there. So, I mean, that type of stuff, and especially this year, is why spring training numbers mean, almost absolutely nothing unless it's a guy trying to make a team hitting 600.
And this is a unique situation for the Braves this year, too, because they brought in a handful of veteran major leaguers, former All-Stars. You had 2 former All-Star third basemen, Pablo Sandoval, and you had Lamb. You have Jake Lamb, right? 2 former All-Star third, and then you have Jason Kipnis, former All-Star second baseman. Well, you're not going to bring those guys in because when they sign, you talk to them and say you'll get a chance to show.
Yeah.
So you're going to let them get ABs. So those are the guys getting a lot of ABs in these early games, more so than the regulars are, because you got to see what they got left.
Yeah.
If they got something left, then hey, you got a guy like Kipnis was an All-Star not long ago.
I can't believe he's on a minor league deal. I mean, he must have had a couple rough years, huh?
Yeah. Or Lamb. This is a guy that hit bombs. He had the same 2 years where Duvall had 30-plus homers for the Reds. Lamb had 30-plus homers for the Diamondbacks. Mm-hmm. So you're hoping you get a guy that, because Lamb had a rotator cuff injury and then a quad injury, basically lost 2 seasons. So you're looking at maybe a diamond in the rough or a guy people have forgotten about. All of a sudden, you got a hell of a bench bat, much more than you've had in the last couple of years that can hit you bombs. So they wanted to see what these guys have left. They're seeing some good things out of some of those guys. And, Sandoval, I think, is, he could still put the ball in play, but I don't know if he's, it might be a guy you stash at Gwinnett and have ready in case you need a third baseman or a first baseman for a couple of games.
Because you know what you're getting from him.
Right. And he's a great clubhouse guy. He's a great guy. He's going to keep things loose. And, they liked having him for the playoffs last year, regardless of what he did. So, but Lamb, they've got real character guys too. These guys they brought in, Lamb.
Well,
and
that's
Kipnis,
how you stick around.
Lamb and Kipnis,
Yeah. If you're not good, dude, as soon as you have a bad year, you're gone. You're out of the game. But so just by the fact that they even got the opportunity, they're good guys.
Yeah. We've talked about this before, man. It was a classic example of this. I talked to
Giles.
That's one. But I talked to Kipnis yesterday. Okay, he's on the World Series team with the Indians, with Josh Tomlin. And Josh is like what they thought was near the end of his career at that point, right? Kipnis is an all-star. He's a stud on that team. So Kipnis comes over to the Braves. Tomlin is now, established with the Braves, loved here and everything. It's on a major league deal signed in November. Kipnis signs a minor league deal late in the winter, right? As a free agent. Kipnis is over he's in one of the side, they're using all the clubhouses. They have like minor league clubhouses for every minor league team at the new place. So he's in one of those clubhouses because they got everybody spread out because of the pandemic. So he's over talking to Tomlin in the big league clubhouse. Tomlin opens his big drawer, all the guys got the big drawers, and he's got 4 new pairs of shoes. Like all the guys, that are on the team, major league deals have shoes. And Kipnis says he tells Tomlin, because I asked him, I said, are you surprised to see Tomlin still going on a big league deal and going strong here with the Braves? And he said, yeah, I was surprised because I was at his locker and he pulls out a drawer and he said, I told him, I said, man, who would have thought we were the World Series a few years ago? That I'd be sitting here, I'm camped up in one of the minor league clubhouses, and I'm over here, and you're over here with 4 new pairs of shoes.
Yeah.
But it was one of those, what you talked about, being a good guy. Fast. But being a good guy can help you really stick around for a long time. And he is a classic guy that stuck around a long time. Obviously, you still got to perform, and he's done that, in whatever role they stick him in, and he's been invaluable, as a coach on the field for the young guys, but he still can pitch. Yeah. But if you're an asshole with those other things, you're gone. You don't have a chance.
Gone. Yeah.
And Kipnis is a great guy who's still getting another chance, even though he's had a couple of down years. But it's just funny. Tomlin is like the epitome of what we talk about, those guys.
Well, and you never get that second chance to turn it around is the thing, because you'll see guys have, like Duvall, Duvall had that down year and struggled and everything, and then winds up, turning his whole career around. You get guys like that, and if you keep getting opportunities, something might click. But if you're a douche, man, and you're just out of the game, and nobody wants to deal with you, it's something that, I pride myself a lot on, because my last 2 years with the Braves, I was like, you must have been a great guy, because you don't belong out here right now. 2 years in a row with a 6 ERA and just kind of keep getting opportunities. They were committed to giving me that chance to turn it around. I just couldn't do it. But it's not hard. That's the first thing teams ask about too. When you get traded, nobody says is this curveball really as good as they say? Everybody calls a former teammate and wants to know if you're cool or not. How you're going to be in the clubhouse. So that stuff's really important.
Yeah, and anybody that dismisses it, teams wouldn't focus on it if it wasn't important. They don't do it. Teams are here to win, man. Yeah. They're not taking guys just because they're good guys. They're taking them because they're good guys that can help them win. If they didn't have Josh Tomlin, who knows? Mentor says his career would not be turned around if it wasn't for Josh Tomlin. So you've got one guy right there who's now a key piece of your bullpen. And he says Tomlin is the reason.
Yeah. That's what kind of what David Ross was for me. And that's why so many people were so happy for him, because he was just backup catcher, never really getting any press, but we all knew his value in the clubhouse. And if you gave us a choice between him and some guy that hits, 15 homers off the bench, everybody would have picked Rossi on their team, over that. But he didn't blow up until he went to the Red Sox and won the World Series. And then he went and had the same impact with the Cubs. And people started to really realize his value. And now all of a sudden he's managing a major league team and he's on Dancing with the Stars. He finally blew up. But we all knew that's who he was the whole time.
Yeah, yeah. I asked Tomlin if he'd like to be when he is finally ready to hang him up, if he'd like to be a pitching coach, or a manager. He said, all these things. I'd love all these things. He's one of those guys that never made a fortune playing. He's made good money, but not a fortune. And just loves the game and being around the guys so much. Yeah. He loves getting there early. He loves staying late. He loves talking to everybody. Perfect guy for that. I could see him either being one of those guys that works his way up through the minor league system and manages in the minors for 10 years or 5 years, or I could see him getting a job as like an assistant, a bullpen coach. And if he did well enough, maybe getting a chance as a pitching coach,
Yeah. Well, you definitely got to grind. Not too many guys just go straight from playing to being a manager unless you're – you got to be like a Carlos Beltran or somebody that's just so established in the game and everybody knows you. But, the hard part for baseball is going to be, there's a lot more to coaching than just, looking at numbers. Mm-hmm. And the hard part for baseball is guys are making so much money now that when they offer you, you want to start this minor league job for us and try to work your way up at 50 grand a year.
Yeah.
And that was, that's not even half a paycheck for them, or a quarter of a paycheck. Do they want to put the time in? So I think baseball is going to have a really hard time finding good quality, experienced big leaguers that'll put the time in to climb those ropes. Like Ron Washington.
Yeah.
He would have been a lifer either way, but when he played back in the day, he would have made so much money. He would have never needed to coach.
Yeah.
And now, so you're going to have guys that really good players, a ton of knowledge, just kind of gets lost because they're just going to disappear and enjoy retirement.
And you've set the precedent now of hiring because you had to. If you want a guy to manage in the big leagues who was a big league player, you're pretty much going to have to roll the dice and hope he can do it without any experience, or very little experience, because you're getting guys going straight to managing, like Rossi, know. If you want to get those guys to manage, you're going to have to straight to take them, what you know about them, their personalities, and just say, I think you can do it. But you're not. Most of them aren't going to go up and do it in the minor leagues for a few years. They're like, I don't need to do this. I could work for ESPN and make easy money. Make good money doing working a few hours a week.
Yeah.
Like I like Chipper.
Yeah.
He's taking a part-time hitting coach job now. But if you wanted him to be a manager, he's going to have to be named the manager
too. Yeah, and he's got to want to put that time in because it's a big commitment.
He's not going to do it until his kids are grown up.
Yeah, and what he's doing now is on his terms. Right. Show up when you want.
Home games.
That's
show up at noon. Work till game time. Go home. Watch the game. Put the kids to bed.
I've talked to a couple organizations about being a single A pitching coach or something, and it's like, I got to move. My kids are in school. I got to move my family, be away from them all, and go live in some town in the Midwest and grind it out, and probably operate at a net loss,
Yeah.
because of all the moving your family and everything, and it just hasn't been appealing to do that. I think they'll have to start paying if they really want to keep guys that have played a long time in the game. They're going to have to start paying them a lot better.
Yeah, because this minor league. Those salaries are low.
It's like 50 grand a year.
Yeah. And that's why you get more of the journeyman type players that take those. Guys that didn't make enough in their big league career to just live on for the rest of their lives.
Which sometimes are the best coaches because they had to grind and they understand the ups and downs and the failures. But if you want a guy with Chipper Jones knowledge,
right,
you just got to get lucky that he's willing to do it because it's not going to be about money.
Right. I mean, you can count on one hand the number of great former players who are managers,
Yeah.
Dusty Baker. And can we even name the other ones? There's good players, Beltran would have had it. Cora, good players.
Good players.
But great players. Dusty Baker, he was great for a while. But
another hurdle is you got to be willing to take Snell out in the 6th inning.
Exactly.
You got to be on board with the analytics and all that stuff too to get a job now.
And Dusty was great in a different era where they didn't make enough money to retire forever. If the Dusties of today are making $20 to $30 million,
they're playing golf.
Yeah. So it's different, man. You're right. They're going to have to jack up those salaries in the minors a lot. But I think it's going to be more guys going straight into a managerial job or a hitting coach job. But they don't make much money either, hitting coaches. You got to start jacking those up like you did, say, college defensive and offensive coordinators who used to make, $100 grand, and now at the big schools are making $1 million.
Yeah.
So you
got to find a way to value it.
Right. So if an offensive coordinator or defensive coordinator at a power school is making $1 million, $2 million, you gonna tell me a hitting coach should be making 150, 200 grand? 162 games, they're working their asses off for 8 months a year, know? And then a lot of them in the offseason are also being asked to go work with hitters or whatever, take calls. And so you got to make it worth their while if you want the great ones doing it, staying in the game.
Yeah, because there's just so much more. And I'm not against the analytics side of baseball at all. I don't have a problem with it, but there's so much more. There's just a mental side of the game that it helps so much to have been through it and understand thought processes and keys and how to get out of slumps and all those things that the numbers won't necessarily tell you. And ideally you find coaches that played a long time and embrace that, but
like Ron Washington.
Yeah, but it's
Seitzer.
hard.
Yeah.
Like Seitz, I mean, can you put any value on what Seitz has done for all these hitters?
Yeah. He's been terrific.
Guys working with him I would pay Chipper $5 million a year to be my hitting coach if I was a team.
and he embraces like adding Chipper or adding Bobby Maggs from AAA. He didn't have an ego or a concern about his job where he goes, no, you're going to usurp my authority by adding more guys. He's got He's got 3 assistants now. One was a former MVP, who was the biggest name in Atlanta sports, arguably in the last 30 years. Yeah. And he didn't even bat an eye. You know, you want to add him in January? You make headlines? Do it.
Yeah.
Because he's like, are you kidding me? Chipper and I are on the same page. I love when he talks to my guys.
So it's got to make the job easier. You know,
Seitz is well set. He knows that he's okay.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. They got a great coaching staff. You just hope that these guys will stay together a few more years because they're in their window right now to win it all, and their coaches are all. A couple of them are getting up there, but Wash shows no signs of slowing down. Yeah, and the other guys aren't in their 60s yet. So
no, they're lucky. See. They're really lucky they were able to piece this together. This group of coaches.
Cranny really has fit in great too. Yeah. You know, they love Cranny. I thought the other day, who was a veteran pitcher that came in? Drew Smiley was talking about how Cranny has got that old school vibe, but he embraces the analytics and all that. He says, I like that. You know, that guy's been through a lot and everything, could relate to you and all the old school vibe. But at the same time, he's not like, he doesn't dismiss analytics at all. And they've got enough people on the staff that they can present these analytics to the players in a way that they're not asking the numbers crunchers to come out of the analytics den to present these things. Here you go. You need to do this and that. You know, they're having coaches to present it to them. Yeah, and I don't mean to mock the numbers crunchers because they're not like that.
That's
they're
how
cool
you're
guys.
That's how you're going to be viewed, though, if you're just handing a piece of paper over and telling a dude that's played 7 years in the big leagues to, he needs to swing first pitch more or something like that, but when it comes to a coach and a guy that's done it, he's absorbed the information and he agrees with it and he presents it to you, in a baseball way, then you're a lot more likely to accept it. The
guy in the polo shirt tucked into the neat pressed khakis coming in and going, I've noticed that your launch angle, that's not the guy you want telling, presenting these numbers to you. Yeah. So, again, any of them that watch this podcast are going to go, oh, thanks a lot, asshole. Because they're not like that. The ones I know are cool guys. But I thought yesterday, the game Tuesday against the Sox was a microcosm of the good and bad of Kyle Wright and Touki at this point in their careers. Both guys pitched. They're having Touki piggyback. Again, there's very few innings for relievers at this point because – like in a piggyback situation, you wanted Kyle to go like 4 innings and Touki to go 3. Kyle ended up not getting out of the 3rd. But they're eating up a lot of the innings, and for the first 2 weeks, they were only playing 7 innings. Yeah. And now they're playing 9. But yesterday, you saw the good and the bad. Kyle Wright, we saw it last year in September, late September, and in his first postseason start, where it was terrific. And then we saw in his start against the Dodgers where he didn't get out of the first inning. It was awful. And they had no chance to win that game because of how bad he was in the first inning. So he's still not quite there. And it's still an inning gets away from him and can still unravel for him in a hurry. And then we saw Touki yesterday. Touki, I think, every time I think he's turned a corner, he has to stubs his toe a little bit. But, man, he's come a long way. He's so close, I think, that, he had a period. He had 2 games, one last week, and then Tuesday, where last week's game, he gave up a single to the first guy he faced. Then he retired the next 9 guys, 3-inning stint. Then he started out yesterday by retiring the first 6 guys he faced. And then his 3rd inning came apart on him. But that was 15 straight guys that he retired over 2 games. And you've talked about how Touki is, for the guys who say, the Twitter people that say, you're jerking him around, put him in as a reliever. He's great for an inning or 2. But if you're Touki, you got 4 pitches. Yeah. Explain why you don't just, at this point, a 24-year-old guy, you say, you're a reliever, you can do it for 1 inning.
Well, one, because he's way more valuable. A starter's way more valuable, and he's got too good of stuff, and he's too close. And it's tough for him. He's in a tough spot because if he was in an organization that was rebuilding, they'd just give him 200 innings this year, or 150, whatever it is now. And they'd let him figure it out and they'd get their answers. But he's in an organization, for his career, unfortunately, personally, he's in his organization that wants to win this year right now. So they can't afford to have that patience with him. That in my mind, he needs to know that if he messes up, he's not going back down to AAA. So there's that added pressure for him all the time.
Right.
But he's got a 95 mile an hour fastball, nasty curveball, split. I mean, he's got the stuff to be a legit major league pitcher, and he's too young to give up on in that sense. Kind of like where Newcomb was at a few years ago. And they just kept trying to figure it out, and he thrived in the bullpen. It's easier to be a relief pitcher. It's challenging in a different way, but you can throw 2 pitches. You can come in. You don't have to think. There's not as much exposure to have that bad inning. But for him, it's almost unfortunate that he's in an organization that's so stacked with starting pitching options and 2 trying to win right now. Or he'd just be, if he was with, say, the Marlins or somebody, he'd get his opportunity and get a chance to kind of really figure it out.
Or if he was Tom Glavine with the 1987 Braves, you go 2-4 with a 5.54 ERA and 9 starts. And then with the 88 Braves, you go 7-17, lead the majors in losses with a 4.56 ERA. You get 34 starts, 195 innings.
How old was Tom at that time?
Tom was 22.
Yeah.
In that second year. Touki is now 24. When Tom was 24 with the 1990 Braves, the worst in the worst of first, so they were still last place. So he's in his 4th year. He's 24. Tom went 10-12 with a 4.28 ERA in 33 games after having a 3.68 ERA the previous year. So anyway, you're talking about 4 seasons. Let me look at this real quick. After 4 seasons, Tom is 33-41 with a 4.29 ERA in 105 starts with a 1.353 WHIP. You would have no chance to do that now with this team.
But not in this organization.
So when they got good in 91, this is a guy that's figured it out. The 91 Braves, the worst of first team, he goes 20-11, leads the majors in wins with a 2.55 ERA at 25.
Yeah.
The next year, he goes 20-8 with a 2.76 ERA. Oh, and in that 25, for the worst first team, at age 25, his first really great year, he wins the Cy Young. Second year, he finishes second in the Cy Young. Third year, when he's good, he's 22-6 with a 3.20 ERA and finishes third in the Cy Young. So it's just what you're saying. I mean, this is a guy that got chances for 4 years, and look how it paid off.
Yeah, and if they'd been good during that time, who knows? I mean, it's hard to say a guy as good as Tom Glavine, Hall of Famer, wouldn't have been a good pitcher at some point. But so much of it's just taking your lumps and learning the league and that mental maturity, man. And you need time to do it, and the team doesn't have time to give him. So he's just in a tough spot.
Oh, I think Tom would have been great, obviously, but I think it would have been either here in another couple of years because he'd had to go back and forth between AAA or traded.
Yeah.
And gone somewhere else and thrived.
And that's what teams are afraid of, too. You look at Touki's stuff.
Exactly.
How bad do you look if you don't get a good return for him and then he goes off to the Diamondbacks or something and wins 15 games?
He goes off, becomes Adam Wainwright.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's you don't want to give up on a guy too early. And shoving him in the bullpen, it's not giving up on him, but it's giving up on him. It's giving up on a part of him that's where his highest potential is.
So it could be a good year in that regard because the Braves fully intend to give all their regular starters extra rest coming off the pandemic year. So this is a unique year, too, in that I don't think we're going to see any of the starters, maybe Fried, maybe Charlie Morton, because he's at the end of his career and they don't have to worry. He's not worried. They might go over 150 innings. But I think all the others are probably going to go about 120 to 150.
Yeah.
So you're going to have a lot of starts there for guys like Wright, Touki, Inoa, to make between maybe 3 and 8 starts apiece. I'm just throwing out a number there. Maybe not all of them.
Sporadic, it's still going to be, it's kind of piecing it. He needs a run where what he needs to happen for him is he needs to come up and just deal and force them to let him pitch again.
Like Ian Anderson did last year.
He didn't give him a choice.
Right.
Ian Anderson was going to pitch again. All of a sudden, he might have been the best pitcher on your team during that period. So that's what Touki needs is he needs consistency, and he needs to get a lot of starts. But when you're an up and down guy and you've been inconsistent, the team they don't have that. They can't throw you back out there not knowing what's going to happen. So you have that bad one, and it's here we go again. And that's a really tough place to be as a pitcher too.
Yeah. It'll help, I think, in that they're going to have the alternate site at least to start the year, because AAA season, minor league season, has been pushed back. So they'll be on it every fifth day, and they'll be facing major league caliber hitters
instead of sitting in the pen.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Some guys down there rehabbing, some other top prospects, some guys that have been, some really good hitters. It's not going to be like facing, your typical AAA lineup. And they'll be on it every fifth day, and that's what they were on last year, every fifth day. So you saw when Ian Anderson came up, he was ready. And you saw when Kyle Wright came up, because when he got sent down, he was on that every fifth day. Bryce Wilson, every fifth day at the alternate site. So I think if they put Touki in that rather than have him go bullpen, start, if they have him every fifth day and keep him on a schedule, maybe he's ready to step in if there's going to be an injury, at least one. They got a couple of older guys. They got guys coming off pitching 27, 20, 30 innings. There's going to be. It's not going to work out the way you want it to work out. So if you're pitching well enough down at the alternate site or AAA, you're going to get a chance to start. So you just got to be ready. And like Ian Anderson was.
You got to make the most of it.
It's funny. Remember when Ian Anderson made that first start? It was not even a question of whether he's going to get another one start.
No, because it's dominant.
He beat Garrett Cole and the Yankees. And then he makes that second start against Boston, wins. And then it's like, how long is he going to stay up? It's not even that anymore. It's like he's in the rotation.
Yeah. But that's all. I mean, honestly, that's all it takes. And Ian had the benefit of not having a history of good and bad. I mean, he got a fresh slate. He came up and pressed, and he just rolled with that momentum. The more years that you do what Touki's done, where you kind of get hot and cold and be inconsistent, people just have a tendency to just believe that's who you are when you're bad. It's that here we go again. There's who we really thought you were. And that's not fair for a player, because he's never really gotten a chance to start for 2 months in a row and figure that out. But nobody feels sorry for you, and you get your opportunity. You just got to make the most of it.
So you got these two former first-round picks in Kyle Wright and Touki. Kyle's 25, Touki's 24. Yesterday, Kyle, he got replaced in the third inning with 2 out and the bases loaded against the Red Sox. And it was just a reminder that, just when you think last year he turned a corner, then he has that game against the Dodgers, and then in spring training he has a game like this. It just takes a long time for some guys, man. Other guys make it look easy, like Ian Anderson, but they pulled him with the bases loaded in the third inning yesterday, and that was not the plan. But he ran up so many pitches against, he kept getting ahead 2 strikes on guys and not putting them away, and that's been a problem for him this spring. And Snit thought in the first inning, even though he got through that with just 1 hit, Snit thought he got away from using his fastball again, and that was a problem last year. He'll get away from using his fastball or from using his, he goes to that slider all the time, and guys start spitting on it. And so I think it's just still figuring things out, but you can't afford to have a blow up like that this year or last year in a 60-game season. But this year, I think the NL East is going to be so competitive.
Oh, it's going to be tough.
And the bullpen's not as deep as last year, not nearly as deep. So you can't afford, like you could last year, you could take guys out in second or third inning because you were 10 deep in that pen and you had a bigger roster. This year it's going to be a normal pen. Good, not real deep. And you can't afford many times taking a guy out in the third inning, man, and making a bullpen work 6 innings. Against the caliber opponents you're facing in the NL East, you can't just give up a game, because in a regular year you sacrifice some games because you don't want to, you're not going to tax the bullpen and bring in all your best guys. But you can't do that as much, I don't think, in a year where there's some really good teams in the East, and there's 5 teams that are going to make the playoffs out of the NL. 5.
Yeah.
And one of those is going to be the team in the West that doesn't win it. So there's one spot, basically, for the non-division winners. So you got to win the division. In the NL East, I don't think second place is going to make the tournament. I think the Central is so much softer that they'll probably have 2 teams in it. Yeah,
they could. It's tough, man. It's going to be I don't know. I mean, I expect the Phillies, that they don't scare me. The Mets, it depends on, those changes. They had changes in ownership, changes from the top down. Got Lindor. they made some pretty good moves, but they didn't do everything I was expecting. I thought they were going to go all out, but still, I mean, Nationals are decent. Braves are still my favorite to win the division because they've already done it, and I like the team. I like the stuff that the intangibles the team has, but you don't have time to mess around for sure.
So yeah, Ozuna hits a three-run homer yesterday in the top of the third. Braves are up 3-2. Wright comes out after he had given up 2 runs in the second inning. So he comes out to third, strikes out the first 2 batters, Alex Verdugo and Xander Bogaerts. And then he hits Hunter Renfroe with a pitch, gives up a line drive single to Gonzalez, walks the next batter, Vasquez, to load the bases. And Snicker, that was it. His pitch count was getting up, and Snicker brings in Thomas Burrows, who bailed him out by getting Christian Arroyo on a liner to Dansby. So he got out of that. You know, Wright asked Kyle about it, and he said, a little sporadic. I feel like I have a good idea of what I was doing. I have to go back and watch to confirm that, but I think I just got a little too antsy. Once I got those 2 quick outs, I wanted to get another one. I ended up losing command a little bit. Got a little too antsy and rushed to the plate.
Mm-hmm. Those are just the growing pains you go through. You know, he's in that same boat where he was pretty inconsistent with a lot of starts, but you see all the potential there, and it's just going to be him and Touki and Wilson just duking it out, and whoever takes that job, I mean, whoever gets
and
opportunity and makes, and Anoa too. I mean, I always forget about him, but he just doesn't have the hype, but he's maybe the most reliable. You know, I mean,
right now I go Bryce Wilson. To me, he's the most reliable, and I would have never said that, you know, until last year, until he comes in and beats the Marlins in the game to clinch the division. And then obviously a start.
Good playoff.
You can't forget that start against Clayton Kershaw in games, what was it, 3?
Yeah.
3 or 4? That was phenomenal. I mean, that just showed me so much. And then this
about
spring,
him.
Yeah. And then this spring, even like the other day, he gives up 5 singles in 4 innings, no runs. Now he got help on the third. He gave up 3 straight singles in 1 inning. And Christian Pache made an incredible throw to the plate, nail a guy. But he got through it all. He didn't fall apart. He's not walking anybody. And that right now is what Snit loves, guys that don't walk anybody, you know, because he gets sick of walks last year. And
just like Bobby.
I like Bryce Wilson in that spot, in the 5th spot to start the year. That's the way I'd go. It's not going to last that long. You know, I think Soroka's going to be up. But if Bryce pitches his ass off, you know, then maybe you make a tough decision. You know, I can't see anybody else getting booted at all. I mean, Smiley would have to completely fall on his face, but they gave him $11 million. They're not going to. It's going to take a lot to move him from the rotation, you know, early.
Yeah, you're not just going to eat that.
No.
But like you said, there's injuries. There's always stuff coming up. But Soroka, I mean, I can't believe he's as far along as he is. Achilles used to be so much scarier than it seems to be now.
8 months in, and he's throwing sim games. Threw a sim game against Ian Anderson last week. I know a scout that was there said he looked great. Said he was maybe his velo's off a couple of clicks, but that's totally to be understood. I mean, understandable at this point. And he said the most important of his movement, his location was all good. He looked good on the mound. He wasn't favoring. He said he had a couple of ground balls near the mound, and one he fielded cleanly fine, and the other he said, he showed a little, maybe he's favoring it a little bit. But that's the last step for the Braves is the running part, you know, because he hasn't ran out of the box yet. Maybe in the last couple of days he has, but that's what they're being careful with because they don't want him babying it or worrying about it, you know, because they say after like 5 months or whatever that the Achilles is not going to snap it strong again. But tell that to a guy that's trying to run on it, you know?
Yeah, tell that to the guy whose Achilles snapped. You know,
right.
I mean, that's going to be, that moment's going to be in his head probably, maybe even the rest of his career. Anytime he starts to kind of think about taking off the first or fielding ground balls, you know, you're always going to subconsciously favor that ankle a little bit and try to stay off it. But,
and then you injure something else.
Yeah, but that's why you don't throw. I mean, even if he's going out there and he just threw 3 innings and struck out 9 with no hits, you know, you still be cautious of that because you know that's going to be in his head, and he's so valuable. I mean, if he was 37 and you had a weak starting pitching staff, maybe you throw him out there early and rush him. But with a guy as valuable as him, I mean, there's just no reason to risk it.
So Touki, you know, I said he retired 15 in a row at one point. Asked him after that game where he gave up a single and retired the next 9 guys how the changes, what he's done since last year, and he said experience, time. He said he's just taking it day by day, but the experience that he's had in the last few years has really helped. But he said I took it upon myself to slow things down and just be happy with what I'm doing. Just take that and build on it. And he said, asked him, is there anything you did to throw more strikes this year? And he said it was a mechanical issue. I worked really hard this offseason to get that mechanical issue fixed so I could repeat my delivery. Asked him to kind of specify, and he said, my glove side was low. I was rotational. I wasn't linear. I just got more linear to the plate. I got my glove side up. I just told myself, be more athletic instead of becoming a pitcher. Just be more athletic and throw the ball over the plate, and that's basically what my job is. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah. Oh, it's just simplifying it,
Yeah.
If the thought of being athletic and yeah, talking about, Wright was talking about being antsy. It's incredible how much your mentality can affect your mechanics, self-doubt, tension, stress, all that stuff. You just start moving different. You get tenser and you don't move the same. Touki talking about just, being in the moment and just, taking it one pitch at a time and slowing the game down. Those are all the things you hear great players talk about, but they're the hardest things to do, because when you start feeling pressure, you just move different, you move tighter. Mm-hmm. But that makes pretty good sense. And those are just the steps, maturity wise he has to take. And that's why you don't give up on him.
Drew Smiley, he's had 2 games in Grapefruit League games, because he's one of those guys that's pitched in a lot of sim games, and instead of Grapefruit, but 2 games, went 2 innings in each. The second time he's supposed to go a lot longer. He looked great in the first one, or he looked okay in the first one. He looked terrible in the second one, but see a guy that, is in his 30s, what he did last year, what his breaking ball does. See a guy, you just dismiss this and go, you never know what he was doing. He's working on something. Some was like, what he does in these spring training starts, you're not going to put much stock in that, right?
You can't. You already gave him 11 mil, but yeah, with veterans, it's not exciting. They're not feeling pressured. It's hard to get up for the games. I never look into their spring training stats. The only guys you really look at are the guys that are trying to make a team and might be feeling that pressure, and the games might mean something to them. But for Fried and Smiley going over to the minor league side, or, I guess inter squad, whatever they're doing, those games aren't the same. But maybe you're working on something. It's just, that's why spring training is so hard to gauge, because if you suck, you just say you're working on something. If you do well, you give up some reason or something else you were working on and blame it on that. But nothing really matters till the lights come on.
He said the problem in his second outing was that he wanted to get his curveball going. I mean, that's his best pitch. And he threw his off speed after not doing that much in his debut. But he said after he used the curveball to get out of trouble in the first inning, Tuesday, in his second start, or a week ago Tuesday, that he went away from using his fastball and he started spiking the curve early in at bats and hanging it with 2 strikes instead of putting hitters away. End result, he gave up 8 hits, 5 runs, and 1 walk in 2 innings, and that included a rolled second inning. They're rolling innings this year. If it's getting out of hand and the pitch count's getting up high, they're just quitting the inning. So,
he got guaranteed money. You got the luxury to kind of tinker around a little bit and try to get your curveball going.
Yeah. Last thing before we break it, there aren't many guys that stand out in spring training where you really go, whoa, this is notable. Jason Hayward was one, the spring he had that year. Cool. Freddie Freeman stood out in spring. There are occasionally guys that do. Most of the time you dismiss guys' stats in spring training because they're doing it against minor league pitchers, or they've done it, or they're older guys who've been around and know minor league pitching, there's no match for them. Getting in the 7th inning, like Kazmar, People get all excited. He's hit 3 home runs early. There's a reason he hasn't played in the major league since 2008. God bless him. Great guy. That's why he's still in the organization. He's 36 years old. And people say, is he going to make the opening day roster? Like he's all of a sudden a really good player. He's a great AAA player. And he knows what to do against minor league pitchers in spring training games. Can you tell people why you don't get too excited about guys, of that ilk who have big springs? You've seen them before.
Well, exactly what I was just talking about is he knows he's not making the team. He's not playing with any pressure right now. And you wind up facing, especially if you're in his shoes, I don't know if he's starting or what he's doing, but you wind up facing the lesser talent, and you happen to be doing it in a big league spring training, game on the big league field. But you wind up, the backup guys and the guys that come in later in the game are just, it's guys that he's playing against AAA right now, or the guys you face. There's just, like I used to have Willie Bloomquist with Seattle. We were in spring training, and he seemed like he hit 400 every year in spring training.
Yeah,
because he was just willing to take his single. And you got pitchers working on, like Smiley working on getting his heater back in the zone, and they just take their single to right field. It's just not. It's not the. Everybody's doing different stuff. Some guys are working on things. Some guys are trying to make teams. It's just kind of. It seems like everything's just random, and but you got your guys like Freddie and Ozuna that you can confidently say when the lights come on, they're going to be who they are because you have a track record of watching it. And Kazmar's got a track record that he has. So a good, 3 weeks in spring training doesn't change the player he is.
And I was getting around to the point I was going to make was very few guys that I've really seen in spring training where I've gone, whoa. I've seen one of those this spring, and Michael Harris. Mm-hmm. This is a guy that I'm going, whoa. And, you see him in a game. Before I knew much about him, I saw him in that game last year where he was 19 years old. He just turned 19. And the Braves had him playing in those exhibition games against the Marlins that were on TV. And he had a hit. And he looked in the box like a veteran up there. This guy's put together, about 6 foot, muscular little guy. And he looked totally comfortable. I'm going, this is the kid that was just drafted out of Stockbridge High in 2019.
What round was he?
3rd rounder. And that game is where he stood out to me. And I asked about him and said, yeah, he's really, and then he goes down, and that was why they sent him to the alternate site last year, even though he had no chance to make the team. They wanted some top prospects there because they didn't want him just sitting around all year. They knew they were too valuable to do that. So he's one of those that had no chance of playing, but they wanted there all year. So he spends the alternate site, he spends 2 or 3 months down there facing big league pitchers that are down there rehabbing or sent down, like guys like Fulte and Newcomb, top prospects like Ian Anderson, Wright, Tucker Davidson, Mueller. That's the guys he's facing every day in these. They played exhibition or spring scrimmage games every day.
Well, these are guys we were talking about. It could accelerate their growth, getting to go against that competition.
Exactly. He's one of the rare guys that this paid off for him.
Yeah.
He, instead of playing in like high A last year, because he's played 53 games of pro ball, half of those in rookie ball, half of them in low A. That's it. So instead of playing in A ball last year, he's facing these guys. He comes into camp this year, and for the first couple of weeks, he was the best player on the field.
That's awesome.
This kid can hit. He's up there. He got behind an account. I was down there for a week, 8 days, and he got behind an account one day. He's down 1-2. He fouls off 3 straight pitches. He looked like Nick Markakis up there fouling off pitches. Looks totally comfortable, like he knows what he's doing. Like, I'll just foul these off till I get one I can hit. Then he hits a hard ground. He grounds out, but it's a hard hit ground ball. Gets to the dugout. Everybody's patting him on the back, handshaking him. I mean, this kid's got professional at bats. He's 20 years old. He just turned 20 2 weeks ago. Just turned 20. So I get set up in a one-on-one with him. I talk to him. Really mature. Quiet, really mature. I call Marquise Grissom. I find out has been his mentor. Marquise Grissom has a baseball program, kind of like East Cobb. He's got his own in South Atlanta. A lot of the inner city kids, that kind of guys play in it. And Marquise Grissom took this kid under his wing a few years ago out of Stockbridge High, made him and I put him on. This kid went to his summer ball team. Marquise had 4 guys drafted in 1 year, a couple of years ago. And they were the year ahead of Michael Harris. And he said Michael Harris was the best pitcher on my team and the best hitter on my team. And I had 4 guys a year ahead of him that got drafted. And he was the best hitter on the team. He came in, he was a skinny 15-year-old. He's worked his ass off. And now he's this wiry 20-year-old. And I mean, this kid has got everything. He's a 5-tool guy. He hits for power. He hits opposite field, and he can go get it. He made a catch the other day in the gap. Dead sprint back to 420 at Boston. It's kind of like Fenway. They have a thing that juts out, 420. Yeah. He made a catch back there near 420. Got a great arm because he was a pitcher. 93 topped out in high school. So he's got a great outfield arm. And I talked to Grissom, and Marquise says, this kid's different. He goes, and now as a former player, when I say kid's different, the last guys I saw it said were different was Chipper Jones, Gary Sheffield, Jim Tomei. Those are the guys, Barry Bonds. Those are the 4 guys he said I would say are different. He said the great ones are all different. This kid is different. He goes, I'm just saying, as a former player, I'm telling you, this kid is ready. He just turned 20. And Marquise Grissom, the 2-time Gold Glove winner, All-Star, he doesn't lavish praise on these guys. And he said he didn't try to say, the kid's got a ways to go, and I've had a lot of guys drafted. He's just one of them. He said he's the best one. And he said he told him when the Braves drafted him, because he wanted to play for the Braves from here, Atlanta kid, same county as Hayward. And he said when he's drafted, Marquise looked at the guys they have, the outfielders they had, Pache, Drew Waters, the top prospects coming up. They had Stoid Enders, 3-time Gold Glove winner, and Acuna, obviously. And he said, there's 4 guys they've got. You know what they've got. Well, you got to go out and play your ass off and beat one of them, or you'll be going and playing somewhere else. That's what you got. And he said, and he rose to the challenge. He said, worked his ass off, and he's ready. And after seeing him, who am I to dispute Marquise Grissom? But after seeing him, I can't see anything that he needs to do. I know it's absurd. The guy just turned 20 to say he's ready, but if he doesn't make his debut this year, it would only be if somebody gets hurt probably. But if he doesn't, I think he could be ready to move into the lineup left field next year when Ozuna moves to DH at 21 years old. Just turned 21 at that point.
Well, that's kind of how quick Acuna blew up, as far as people talking about him and things you started hearing being said about him. Once you get, especially really long time major leaguers, guys been in the game a long time. Once they start ranting and raving about a guy and kind of singling him out like this dude's special, most of the time those hit.
Yeah, I mean, the names that Marquise mentioned, as a former player, a guy was around 17 years, I think, or 19 years.
He's seen a lot.
Yeah. He's not going to throw those out there because he knows he'll look foolish if the guy comes up and, he's not going to
decent
with the team that Marquise lives in Atlanta too. So he's going to be careful with his words. And he didn't try to hold back at all. He had no hesitation to say this kid is different. He thinks he's going to be great. And I think he is too, watching the kid. I know we all thought Hayward was going to blow up, but look, Hayward had a couple of years where he was great. He had a 27 homer year until his, the holes in his swing were exposed. I don't think this kid's going to have those kind of problems. He's not 6'4" with those long swing and all this. This is a compact swing, 6 foot, power, built, can fly, great arm, smart kid, really quiet. Man.
But even when Hayward was the talk of the town, if you ask some of the longtime players, they were looking at Freeman when it was between Jay Hay and Freddie, who would you put your money on? And a lot of those guys like TP, Chipper, they were pointing toward Freddie. TP
said, off the record, you guys are focusing on the wrong guy.
Yeah,
Freddie Freeman's the one, man. That swing, he said that guy's different. You're right, and this Snit hasn't held back either. Snit said,
I liked his quote.
He said it's like when Acuna was coming over to big league camp 2 years ago. He said, he told the front office, as long as you send him over, I'm playing him because I want to see him play. He said, that's what I'm thinking. That's what it's like for Michael Harris. I want to see him play. So he put him in the lineup the other day. The game got rained out, unfortunately, but he was going to start a game. And this was the day before his 20th birthday. He was going to start a Grapefruit League game with nothing but low A experience, 20 games in low A.
Well, you can't put any value on that alternate site last year.
Yeah, Snit said he's a very impressive player. I'm going to tell you that. That's kind of what they look like. Yeah, he's raved about this kid. He said, and I asked Acuna, what have you thought about Michael Harris? Acuna in an interview the other day. And he said through the interpreter, he said, from what I've seen, he's a tremendous ball player, and I'm glad he's kind of getting a shot here in spring training. And I wouldn't be surprised to see him soon in the big leagues. I like Drew Waters' tools, man. I think he's going to be a good player, real good player. He's got to cut down the swing and miss. But if I'm Drew Waters right now, I'm going, holy shit. And he's a really confident. Drew Waters is a really confident player. Cocky. He'll say, I'm borderline cocky like Chipper was when he's young. But if you're looking realistically at this, you're going, am I going to beat this kid out? They don't need all of them. And those guys need to all play. They're not platoon guys.
No.
I could see him leapfrogging him, even though he's only got 50 games of pro ball. I could see him leapfrogging him during this year. If he hasn't in their minds already or on some board they have privately. he's that good.
They got their ideas.
And he doesn't strike out much, man. He puts the ball in play already. He's got a great approach at the plate. Markakis is the guy. that he was down. He started the year down last year down at the alternate site when he opted out. So then he opted back in. So he had to spend a couple of weeks down at the alternate site to get ready. He came back. Snit said the first guy he was talking to me about was this Michael Harris kid. He said, this kid can play.
Yeah.
And Snit's like, really? You really like him that much? I liked him too when I saw him. And Snit said, oh yeah, this kid can play. And Harris said Markakis was great talking to him down there. But he said all the guys the Braves sent down, like Charlie Culberson was down there. He said all the guys that were down there were awesome as far as talking to him. He said, and I'd ask him questions and they'd all tell me stuff. And he soaks it all in.
Well, that was the experience I had with Soroka when I went down to rehab a game in Rome. You know, everybody, you know, most of the guys in the minors and they're 19, 20, 21 years old, they want to know what kind of car you drive or, you know, what they want to know about the lifestyle of being a big leaguer. Soroka was asking questions that I was like, how are you thinking about that already? You know, like pitch sequences and, you know, where to miss with your slider and little things like that really stood out maturity wise. But everybody matures at their own rate, you know.
Just last thing on him. The other quote from Marquise, who loves talking about this kid. He said, "This is just me talking, but I've been knowing this kid for 6 or 7 years, and he's ready. And when I say he's ready, he's ready. We've got 4 good outfielders right now in Atlanta, but this kid is ready." I'm like, whoa.
That's If he's going that bold with it, I mean, I trust it.
So while it seems almost absurd to say a kid could be up here before he's played 100 games in the minor leagues, Tatis did it, right? I think.
Yeah.
But if there's an injury this year, I'm not going to be surprised. After what Snit saw in spring training of this kid, if there's an injury and they think he's more ready than Drew Waters to play every day, you know, and do just to, you know, put the ball in play, do the things, play. They might bring him up, man. You never know. You know, God forbid, there's going to have to be an injury because they've got their guys. You know, Pache, Acuna, those guys are playing every day. And Ozuna obviously is playing left field this year because there's no DH. But next year, this might be the perfect time. The timing might all be perfect for this kid with the DH coming back next year and Ozuna under this long-term deal. Left field's wide open next year. And they are not going to go out and get a guy to play left field next year. I can tell you that. You're not blocking this kid for another year.
That's cool. I mean, to get it in the 3rd round, too.
3rd round. How about that? That's what Snit said. Credit to the scouting department for seeing this kid and knowing. I'm sure Grissom talked to him, you know. I'm sure he talked to their scouts because he's, you know, they could see him every day playing here because that's the benefit of being a local guy. You know, they're not like they used to go overboard, I think, with local guys. Maybe they weren't the best guy to take. They're not doing that now. But if there is a local kid who's special, they're going to get to see him more than other people are. And a guy like Grissom, who played for the Braves a couple of years, follows the team, lives here, he's going to tell him, you know, you need to come out and see this kid. So, and during the pandemic last year, this was another thing with the timing worked out for this kid and having Grissom as a mentor. Whereas a lot of these kids are looking for a place to play and guys to, you know, face live pitching or whatever, you know, or trying to find places to work out. Marquise has all these minor leaguers came back from when things got shut down. These guys that had been in his program, been drafted the previous year, they're all looking for a place to stay in shape. All the gyms, you know, in like South Atlanta, all the gyms in the fields are all closed down, even where Grissom plays their games, the summer league. So he's got a piece of property in Fayetteville, Georgia, about 30 miles, 25 miles south of Atlanta. And he got 20 acres that are wide open. He and another former big leaguer went out there. They asked these kids, if we do something, will you guys come out and work your butts off? Because I'm not doing this half-ass. If you want to do this.
It's a lot of work.
So they went out, built a little mini field. I think it's like a half field, an infield to take infield on and run bases. They did an uphill climb course to run uphills on. And they had these 5 or 6 guys out there every day and some others that, you know, are like still playing in summer league ball in high school. And he said Harris from day one came there every day. They're in the sun, you know, last summer out there, and there's no water out there or anything. It's out in the middle of nowhere. It's just nothing high tech. This is all DIY. Build this your own self. Said he knew when he came out there and the way he was working every day that was one more thing. He said this kid he's got what it takes, and he worked every day. So when they started the alternate site, he was in great shape. I mean, he'd been working his ass off every day for hours with Grissom and these other kids. So He's not one of those that sat around and during the thing and just like lifted weights, or threw in the backyard.
Well, that's, you can't. I don't know if that's something you can build a work ethic, but some guys are just born with it.
Yeah.
Some guys are just so freaking hungry. You can just tell they're different from day one. And everything you're saying about it, man, you got me convinced.
Yeah. So we'll see. I wouldn't be hyping him up if I thought it was going to blow up my face, and I have no doubts.
Yeah. That's cool.
I just have no doubts. After talking to the kid, something would have to go horribly awry for it not to happen for me. An injury, that he's that good. So we'll see. But the Braves got a good one. Man, you went from having a minor league system that was bereft of catchers and not many outfielders to having too many of both, if it's possible to have too many. So
if he's anything like Acuna too, having both those guys at that young of an age, and Acuna's already locked up. That's a.
I think Chipper. I think Chipper made a comment to somebody says left-handed Acuna. We'll see.
Is there a way for me to gamble on that?
No, I'm not saying.
A bet right now?
I'm not going that far yet to compare to Acuna, but this kid's special. He's special. So we'll see. Anyway, happy St. Pat's Day to everybody, and we got barely 2 weeks. Till opening day, man.
Flying.
It's going to be here before you know it. So,
fans in the stands?
Fans in the stands, like 33% with the Braves are going to have higher than most teams. So, it should be pretty loud with 12,000, 13,000. They can have a good drive with that.
That'd be nice.
Yeah.
Nice for the players.
Yeah.
And the fans.
All right. And then people are going to go to Texas and they're going to have
full stadium.
Super spreader event every game. Come out. All right. Everybody have a good day, and we appreciate it. Be back. We're starting every week, and then we'll go in a couple of weeks. We'll start moving to 2 a week when the regular season begins. So,
sounds good.
Enjoy Walla Walla, man.
All right.
We're out.
See you next week.
See ya.